Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome for the first time. My name is Any, also known as Any Given Sunday, and I am super excited that you're here. As you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be chatting about one of the most commonly or frequently asked questions that I get, which is how do I take notes? How do I use my iPad to take notes? So that is what I'm going to talk about today, and hopefully this video doesn't get too long, but if it does, apologies in advance, but I'm going to get into it. Also, if you're new here, or even if you're returning, especially if you're returning and you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do that. I'm going to be sharing a lot more law school related information just because it seems like that's what I've been getting asked about the most. Yeah, so why not subscribe? So this year I decided to make a big switch and change the way that I take notes, or the main device that I use to take notes. And now I use an iPad, which I have here. And I first want to really briefly talk about the options for doing your readings and taking notes and why I decided to go with an iPad. So there's an iPad, and then there's a laptop, and then of course there's handwritten notes. So I basically, in a nutshell, the reason that I decided to go for an iPad, there were a few reasons. Overall, there is a huge benefit to having two screens, whether you decide to use a desktop and a laptop, or an iPad or a tablet and a laptop. That benefit exists especially in a virtual year where we're completely working from home. And so I appreciated the ability to not rely on one screen for everything. So for example, it helped me out a little bit with focus. Instead of having, multiple tabs or windows open in some of my classes, I say some because sometimes I would do it anyways, but that's not the point. I could full screen my Zoom and then completely focus on notes on my iPad instead of, getting distracted by texts that were coming in or emails, etc. So it really helped with focus. And it also just helped with the way that I took notes. I'm someone who really likes to handwrite things to process them. My senior thesis in college, I basically hand wrote the first half just so that I could get it on paper. Write on for law review and for journals, I started that off. I think I actually completely wrote that on paper before I typed it up. So I'm just someone who has an easier time getting ideas down and a better time processing what I'm reading if I'm taking notes, if I'm handwriting it. And I also like to practice my handwriting because it's an important skill, I think, still, right? Like me handwriting, I don't know. Lastly, it was more convenient. Well, I don't think it was more convenient because I didn't go anywhere, but I imagine instead of lugging around binders of printouts or lugging around some of my casebooks, I would just be able to slide this in my bag, in my backpack, or my tote, because at this point, I could use a tote if I wanted to, and keep it on the move. So those were some of the factors that I considered when I was making the switch from taking notes or reading on my laptop and moving to an iPad. The setup that I have here is pretty simple. I have an iPad Pro, I believe this is an 11-inch Pro, with my Apple Pencil. I have a screen protector that is the point of it is to make it feel a little bit more paper-like, and I'm pretty sure it's called paper-like. I will link all of these things in the description box, but I'm pretty sure it's called paper-like. Does it feel exactly like paper? No, but it definitely made it a lot easier and smoother. Not smoother, but it made it easier to write, and there was a little bit more resistance or friction that made it easier to write and neater. So yeah, that is all that I have here. And now we're going to get into two parts: how I do readings with my iPad using the app that I use, and how I do writings how I take notes with my iPad. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about are readings, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just show you, because I filmed that separately, show you how I even get my readings onto my iPad. First and foremost, the app that I use to take notes, to do readings for everything related to school, or honestly anything on my iPad for the most part, is called Notability. I love it. I think it's about $8 or $9, but it is completely worth it for me, and I think in general it is worth it. There's so many features that I'm about to show you, the first of which is just getting readings onto my iPad. So I'm going to really quickly show you how I do that and how I organize my readings for classes. So I start off by just getting my note open on my app and changing the title so that it's consistent with whatever I decided I was going to do for this class, and that was just name each class by number. Then I download the documents from our online canvas from the online website for my class and get ready to airdrop it to my iPad. It automatically opens up and then it asks me if I want to add it to this note, which I do. I import everything and I bookmark the first page because I bookmark the first page of every reading to make it easier to find them. I do the same thing for the other readings. I add them to class 10, import all of the pages, do it again. There are a lot of readings. So I jump to the first page of the next reading and bookmark that as well. I add a new reading. I import all of the pages of that. Once that's imported, I go to the first page of that document and bookmark it as well, just so it's easier for me to bounce back and forth between readings, as you can see here. So besides the ease with which I'm able to get my readings onto my iPad and in one combined document, I also really appreciate the alternative option for some, which might be scanning your readings. Notability allows you to do that, and this is great if you have a casebook but you don't want to carry it around, or if you have a casebook but you want to scan it for friends who may not have it, or like one of you bought the casebook and you split the cost and you scan and send each other readings. That's an option. Or if you rented a casebook and you can't write in it, these are all really great reasons to use the document scan feature on Notability. So I'm going to really quickly show you what that looks like. Make sure I'm screen recording. So here we are on a random blank document that is inside, just so we're clear, my corporations folder. So I open a new document and I head to this tab. My bad. No, I head to the plus sign and I do document scan. And I have my, oh, whoops, it's covering. I have my casebook in view on a random blank page. We probably read this case maybe. So that didn't work. Oh, that did work. It took a picture of the whole entire page. I can keep scan, and then I can even continue adding. So say I want to go to the next page, I can scan that. It's having a little bit of trouble, you know, doing its thing, but I will do that. Maybe I'll bring it closer. Took a picture of the entire page. Sometimes it's neater when it's real documents. But so I'm going to keep that scan, and now I have 2 pages, and I'm going to save the 2 and insert as a PDF. And now that I've inserted it as a PDF, there it is. And both of the pages are there. And as you can imagine, you can do it for more pages for longer documents. But the beauty of this is you can still go about whatever you would do in the casebook and do it on the actual page. So I can highlight, I can annotate, I can do whatever it is that I want to do on the actual page as I read. And this is a really, really clutch feature for maybe not carrying around your casebooks or cutting costs of casebooks, because now maybe one person can get the casebook, you split the cost, and you scan readings without actually having to stand at a scanner. So another thing that I really like about this is the ability to input pictures straight to the document. So for example, in my evidence class last semester, the professor gave us readings, but the readings were based on rules, but the readings themselves didn't have the rules attached to them. So we had to have them separately. So instead of having a separate document or something like that, what I could do sometimes was just go to the internet, and I'll show you. I could go to the internet, go to the rule, for example. So I just chose rule 403 because I feel like that's a pretty common big rule or whatever. Take a screenshot. I don't remember. Take a screenshot, do my thing as per usual, crop it, crop the rule. Once I did that, I would save it to my iPad, save it to photos, and then I can go to the app where the reading is, and I press this plus sign over here, go to my photo library, and the picture is right there, and I add it. and it shows up right there, and I have added it to the document for my reference. So that is also a really, I think, clutch feature of this app and how I would use it to take notes. You can do the same thing for straight from your camera. You can add a GIF, you can add a web clip, or you can add stickies, which is just another way of being able to take notes while you read. So that is also something that I really appreciated about this app. And then last but not least, this is the reason I use it in the first place, the ability to take, to annotate and to highlight into the document as if I were doing it on paper was of the utmost importance to me. So really quickly, I'm just gonna show you how I do that. It's pretty straightforward. I have open here a case for my gender justice class, Roe v. Wade, know the deal. But yeah, I have up here, there's this bar, and walking you through that really quickly, you have the ability to type text. You can draw a text box. I've turned it off because I prefer to write it. But if you have a keyboard, or for example, you can, type in text over here. But I generally don't use this just because, as I mentioned before, I prefer the feeling of writing things out myself. So I don't use that. So instead, I use the written tool feature, and that just gives me the ability to type notes, or to write notes rather. This is a case about etc. I'm not going to go into it, but my notes would be a lot neater if I were writing on a table, but I'm not. I'm holding this iPad in my hand. And then as you move over, I also just want to show you that you can change the size, you can change the color. There's so many different colors, and that's great for color coding your notes, which I'll talk about when I talk about writing my notes. Then of course you have the highlight tool, and you can once again change the size or the color, which is great if you're reading a case and say you decided you want to put the facts in one color and the holding in another color and the issue in another color. You can do all of that with the highlight feature, and if you make a mistake, you can just erase that. So the next part of how I use Notability in my iPad is taking notes themselves. And so I'm going to really quickly talk through how I do that. So first things first, I normally have open a new document. As you can see here, I do readings for each day. If you decide, you can just have one long document and keep it going and just separate it within the document, but I just choose, for the sake of knowing what we did when, different dates. Opening a new document and changing the title, readings for March, let's just do 30 because I think that's the next day I have class, 31. The first thing that I like about this is that you can change the paper style. So you can change the style and the color. So I can make it pink if I want, and normally I do that for my blog related work, just because that's my brand color. But I normally keep it white, and if you want, you can you can kind of make a legal pad type of thing by changing the color to yellow. I keep it at white. So yeah, I love the fact that I can change the paper style and that I can add lines to actually keep me on track. So here I'm showing you an example I mentioned before of notes that I have slightly color coded. I'm not really big on color coding unless it's major important facts, but what I do color code were the holding. I like that to stand out just so I know what the main takeaway from the case was. And then I also use blue for the notes that I take in class, just to show the difference between what I understood the case to be and what the professor said, or what they want the takeaway to be from that case, just so I can know either differences between the two, or if I'm on call, I can refer back to my notes and then know that this was something that maybe wasn't in the case, or this was something that the professor was big on, because reality is law school exams are not really about the facts of the case, and more so about what the professor wanted you to take away from the case. So yeah, so this is an example of in-class notes that I took, and if it looks really neat here, it's because to make it neat, I would just zoom in really close and write this way. So I'll show you where if I zoom in, it is neater. And then when I zoom back out, it's like, oh, it was written neatly on the line. So that's why it looks so neat here, because I just zoomed in because I was being very like nitpicky about how it looked here, but then I stopped caring. I'm gonna erase that. Yeah, so this is just an example of notes from in class that are attached to or supplementing notes that I took while I read. Lastly, honestly, I think the most clutch features of this app is the ability to cut and paste things. And what I mean by that is, you know, one of the biggest hesitations about taking notes on paper as opposed to typing them out is, you know, what if the professor adds on more to a topic that I had already finished writing about and there's no space for me to go back and add something in neatly. I don't know if anyone else thinks about that, but those are things that I think about because I'm just like, oh, I really want my notes to be organized in a coherent way. And if I have to like draw arrows and say like, you know, this is supposed to go here, it's just kind of really annoying for me. So I'm going to just use this, I'm going to continue using these notes as an example. But say, for example, after this section right here, I wanted to add another line. I'm gonna just erase that. You can also undo things, but I'm gonna use the cut and paste tool and make sure it's on the square. And I'm just gonna move this entire ratification section down a line. So I'm gonna select it, move it down, and then tap the screen again so that it registers the new location. And now I go back to my pen and I can write whatever I want. And so you can do that all the time. You can do that for whole entire pages, whatever you want, but I really appreciate the ability to copy and paste. Lastly, another cool feature of this app is just the ability to voice record. And this also exists on like computer note-taking apps, so I'm really glad it exists on this app. But you can just press this little microphone that's right at the top right here. And I used this once in a class when I knew the professor was saying something that I was not understanding in the moment, but even though I was taking notes on what they were saying and I knew I would have to go back and listen to it later. So instead of like going through the Zoom and trying to find where they said it, the Zoom recording, I would much rather just hit record on my app so I know like this is where he started talking and this is what it was and this is what he was saying so that I can go back and listen later. Only thing is be careful about that because recording, like don't share the recording because you know there's certain things about recording people without their knowledge. Yeah, so keep it on the low or whatever. But it was helpful for me that one instance just to be able to go straight back, and the app also will tell you where the recording started in comparison to where you started writing your notes. So that's also really helpful as well. So that basically gives you a very brief rundown of how I take notes on my iPad and how I use Notability to take those notes for school. Absolutely no pressure. If people, like I've gotten questions that are like, is an iPad a need? Obviously it's not a need, right? I went through my first year of law school without having one. It is a luxury. I was able to afford it after having worked a summer and like, you know, saving extra, and also Columbia giving us a tech grant this year, which like I guess was okay, but would have preferred a refund on my tuition, but whatever. But all of that to say is it is not a necessity. But if you maybe already have a laptop and you have a little bit of extra change or extra cash and you're thinking about making another tech purchase, it might be something that you want to consider getting into because it actually has been such a lifesaver for me. So yeah, if you're either, you know, whether you're in law school, school in general, grad school, college, whatever, Notability and this iPad is probably going to be of incredible use to you. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you might as well not only subscribe, but check out some of my other videos about law school. I'll be putting some more of those out on YouTube, hopefully to be consistent, but we'll see. Yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.